Welcome back, strategic angling fans. Just joining us again for a special episode. Alton Jones Jr., Major League Fishing pro, Bass Pro Tour angler. Young guy, great guest. We've had him in the past, and he's taking a little time out of his drive to the St. Lawrence River to let me bother him for a few minutes about how his season's been going, what he's looking forward to the rest of the year, and maybe some new products coming out. So thanks again for joining us, Alton, and happy to have you.
Hey man, anytime. Thanks for breaking up my drive a little bit. It gets lonely out here on the road.
I imagine. You said it was just over a 24 hours of drive time from the Waco area up to.
It's normally about 26, but thanks to the I-40 shutdown in Memphis, it's about 29 this week. So it was a long day. I put in about 20 hours yesterday, and got to Columbus, Ohio. And then that left me just under 10 hours or 9 and change to get to Waddington, which is where it's all going to go down this week.
Yeah, so speaking of this week, I know you just told me it was blowing like crazy. Is the lake involved? Is it just river? I haven't really looked at the boundaries, but tell me a little bit about this week, what your plan, or don't tell us your plan, obviously don't. A lot of other anglers are probably listening to this, but just give me a little rundown of what you expect to happen this week.
Yeah, so it's strictly the river. The lake is not in play, and we're going out of Messina, which it's like I haven't exactly mapped it, but it's somewhere between 80 and 90 miles to the lake from there. So if you want, our cutoff boundary is the mouth of the river where it enters the lake.
Yep.
And we've actually, it's boundary waters here. We got half in Canada, half in the U.S., and due to COVID still, Canada being shut down, we're actually stuck to just the U.S. side. So we've basically got one 90-mile shoreline to fish, which 90 miles may seem like a long ways, but when you get 80 guys on one shoreline, 90 miles isn't all that much. So they're
like buoys indicating, which water's which, or
no? It's all done with GPS. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you run. It's got pretty good, pretty good boundaries on there, and you can see where the lines run. And from what I've heard, they're like confiscating boats on Canada side, like if you get busted for fishing over there. So.
Wow, you would hate to have that happen, sure. Obviously.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because I fish here a lot, and usually I fish in Canada. So
that's what I was going to ask you is, how much were you planning on leaning on history? I know you've been there in the past with the Elite Series. I think this is Bass Pro Tour's first trip up to the St. Lawrence. Yeah. Is the Canada side where you typically were at, or is the American side a little new to you, or?
It's really about 50-50 for me. I've fished here a lot. Most of the time I fished here, though, it's much later in the year. That late July, even into September. My dad and I used to come up here when he would have a tournament up in this area, whether, they used to come to Oneida a lot. So either the week before or the week after, he would fly me up, or I would drive with him. We'd come spend a week in Waddington fishing. So, I've only fished 2 pro-level tournaments here, but I've spent probably an additional 2 weeks just goofing off, playing around up here. I have fished one time this time of year, and it was the best week of smallmouth fishing I've ever seen. So I have really high hopes for what this week's going to hold. I know there was a local tournament. Their bass fishing season opened Saturday here.
Wow.
So they haven't even really been fished for. There was a local tournament that went out of the river on Saturday, and it took over 30 to win it on 5 smallmouth. So
that is absurd. So do you think this week you'll try to target numbers, or are you going to try to just do something like that? Where you're targeting big fish? What? Any thoughts? Do you care? And what's the minimum this week? Is it 3 pounds or 2 or?
It's going to be 2 pounds. The reason they did that. For several reasons. One, so that largemouth will still play. There's a lot of guys when they come up here. In a 5-fish format, you were never fishing to win on largemouth. You just couldn't compete with the size of the smallmouth. But guys were catching big numbers of 2 to 3 pound and even some 4 pound fish. So those will still play. And Also, we're going to run into a lot of spawning fish this week. And I think if you ended up having that higher average, say you made it a 4-pound minimum, I think they want to avoid encouraging anybody to catch the same fish multiple times.
Right.
And making it a 2-pound minimum should help with that. It's going to happen some this week, but hopefully not a ton.
Guys catching the same fish.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, anybody that's ever fished Sturgeon Bay or, Champlain or the St. Lawrence, smallmouth are dumb. I've done it before. I catch a 4-pounder. It swims back over to the bed. I pitch back over there, and I catch the same 4-pounder again.
Yep.
So I think we want to really minimalize that and avoid that.
Sure, that makes total sense. So, yeah.
Just to add to the St. Lawrence, you can't really just target small ones here.
Right.
It kind of seems like when you get a bite, it's a big one. A 2.5 to 5-pounder. And, it's not like you're going to go catch a bunch of 2.25-pound fish. So that was just saying, I'm just going to target bites, period. Usually when you get a bite, it's a big one here.
So you seem like, even though you're a Texas guy, you've done fairly well in these smallmouth events. I know you've done well at Sturgeon Bay and obviously on the river. Do you prefer the river system smallmouth, or do you prefer something like a Sturgeon Bay or a St. Clair? Are you a lake guy? Or are you I know Sturgeon, Lawrence fishes a little bit like a lake, but
I probably like the river better because they're a little less nomadic, a little more structure oriented than your typical smallmouth.
Yep.
Whereas if you go to, say, St. Clair, they're just going to chase the bait, or Champlain, or even sturgeon. Like, that's the king of having fish just disappear on you. You don't have that happen near as much with the St. Lawrence. Whenever you find them, they're there because of the way the current's running, and and whatever structure's breaking the current, and that's just all rock. It's pretty permanent. So
sure.
They tend to be a little more predictable on the St. Lawrence, if you ask me. But that being said, numbers are not as big here as they are somewhere like Sturgeon.
Right. So I know you gave us, I think, a prediction on Rayburn that you were going to win. Would you like to also predict you're going to win this one as well, or are we just going with second place? Or
I predict every week I'm going to win. I haven't been right yet, but someday I will be.
And you know what? You look like a genius, and we'll have this audio potentially, and then you can reshare it maybe on Twitter or Facebook or something.
Yeah. I like my chances. My strength is, sight fishing, spawning fishing, be it largemouth or smallmouth. So this event should be a way I really, really enjoy to fish,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we get a little smally stuff around here, but it's mostly river, shallow, Mississippi River smallmouth. So they're not really at all like the ones you're going to be catching, but I surely love smallmouth. And I went up to Mille Lacs a few weeks ago. That forward-facing technology with those smallmouth is just awesome. It's borderline. It's borderline unfair. I had never really done it like Mille Lacs, but man, it was awesome. I've got live scope 360 combo, so pretty sweet.
It's an awesome setup. It's one of those things like, how did we ever catch fish without it?
I've been having issues with my active target actually, and I just didn't realize how much I've already started to look at it. When it's not working, I feel like I'm lost.
It's amazing. We go to shallow events. Even at Rayburn, I was fishing hip deep at the deepest, and if I'm out in the grass or whatever, I'm glued to it. I always have one eye on it.
Yeah, exactly. Even though I've fished the spots, 100 times, I'm still like, gosh, I would love to be able to see it. It's just, but anyway, enough about that. June, July seems like it's the time ICAST, Bassmaster Classic, new products are rolling out. People are doing different stuff. COVID's still kind of affecting things a little bit, but is there anything, coming from your sponsors or things that you use that you're excited about coming out, in the next month or two that you want to talk about?
Yeah. One thing, I don't know how many of y'all watched the Bass Pro Tour at Chickamauga last week, or a couple weeks ago, but watching Shin Fukai catch them, and with just a lot of different techniques, and where he was fishing was a mega school. Everybody found that school, one of the most obvious places on the whole lake, but he had found a way to catch them. and he was catching them. I believe it was a depths cover scat. I don't know if you follow it, but cover scat literally means poop. And Geecrack, the two baits in Japan that are really, really big hits on like Lake Biwa and winning big tournaments are the cover scat and the Imo Ripper from Geecrack. And the Imo Ripper is something we're bringing to the U.S. for the first time. I just filmed with them back in May, talking about it and getting a little experience with it.
Yep.
And when they first showed it to me, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but when they first showed it to me, I said, "This is the dumbest thing in the world. Like, wow, what is this? It's ugly, hideous. I'd never throw this." And they said, "No, this is like one of the most tournament winning baits in all of Japan right now. Lake Biwa on these pressured fish." And yeah, whatever. And my guy from Geecrack told me how to fish it. You fish it weightless, which sounds crazy. Deep, 20 feet of water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really bulky, turd-looking bait. And he said you let it go to the bottom, it falls totally horizontal, and you kind of twitch it, like real hard twitches. And then after I got eliminated, I go to watching Shin Fukai catch them on that cover scat, which is, the difference in a cover scat and Imo Ripper is like a Cinco and a Yum Dinger. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Yep.
Very, very similar profile.
Cover scat,
having to talk to my Geecrack guy going, "Did you try that?" And I'm like, "No, I'm an idiot. I know." So, but we are bringing those to the U.S. and with all the pressured fish, especially like post-COVID, that people are fishing more than they ever have. To have something new coming to the States, it's a technique that nobody's really doing, and so I'm excited to bring that and kind of showcase that with them. So that'll be called the Imo Ripper from Geecrack. It's IMO Ripper, RIPPER. So be looking for that.
Oh yeah, and you told me that the Geecrack guy was going to send some our way to do some testing, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think I got to
I'm still trying to get I got like one bag of them, and then so after that happened, I'd shown that bait to a couple guys as a joke, be like, "Look at this funny looking thing from Japan." They're all like, "Ha ha ha." Well, Chickamauga comes around, all of a sudden my phone starts ringing. Matt Lee's like, "Dude, do you have any of those?" And I'm like, "I got one bag," and no, you can't have any. So, I think they're going to be a hot little commodity, especially on the offshore ledge lakes here in the coming weeks.
So they're weightless, but they have such a bulky profile that they'll sink relatively quickly,
right.
Or you can use them deeper.
Yeah. They've got a really high salt content in what they call a SAF material or SAF material, and it's really heavy. If you want to know the profile of the bait, it's hard to see from the pictures. It's about as big around and as long as your thumb.
Okay.
And even weightless, you can throw it. You can throw it a mile. It's heavy for a soft plastic.
Interesting.
And it has a decent rate of fall. It falls slow, but no slower than a light shaky head or a Nico rig would. Shin was talking about he was fishing 6 minutes per cast.
Jeez, that is some patience.
It's a patient technique, but it really, really catches them.
All right, so
that's what it's going to take.
The Imo Ripper.
That's it.
So you think, you mentioned something about, COVID pressure, with the continued growth in fishing, which is great, you think you've been noticing a little, fish are a little bit harder to catch this year than maybe years past?
Yeah, absolutely. Like after really all year last year, they received more pressure than they used to because either people were laid off from work or they were, quote, quote, working from home.
Sure. I was doing a lot of that, working like from home stuff.
And so, you have more time. People have more time. That's what you see. Boat sales, bait sales, license sales, all the way through are through the roof right now. And especially when you go to places like Rayburn or Chickamauga, anywhere on the Tennessee River or Lake Fork. Usually you throw your bait in front of a dozen bass, one of them's gonna eat it. And nowadays, dude, you can throw your bait in front of 500 of them, which I did many times at Chickamauga, and you watch them swim the other direction. So as the pressure becomes more, I think we're gonna have to get there's two ways you got to play it. You either got to throw something bigger and louder and uglier than anything they've ever seen, or you got to throw something smaller, more subtle, and more finesse than they've ever seen. So you just got to decide which way you want to go with it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, a few months ago with fishing exploding. We're not exactly creating more lakes, right? I mean, there's,
Right.
some places are trying with small stuff, but you're not seeing it anywhere else on the Tennessee River or any other river systems that are creating huge new reservoirs. So fishing's going to definitely going to be changing. So, okay.
It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work, not to get political, but the government and the state to do their conservation. Texas does a really good job with the freshwater fishing program, the Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center doing the restocking. But it's going to take a lot of work for them to really maintain these resources.
For sure. We're up in Iowa, Illinois. We deal with a little pressure, but man, nothing like you guys see in the South. It's crazy down there. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Imo Ripper, got that on the radar. Anything else coming from sponsors or things you want to chat about? Otherwise, we'll let you get to your smallmouth.
I probably should have something that I'm wanting to talk about, but really, as far as right now, the Imo Ripper is what's coming to mind.
Yep.
We do have some other things from Geecrack coming, and not this iCast, but maybe the next one we'll have some signature stuff hopefully coming out. Fingers crossed. That's a little further down the line, but
yep.
As for now, that's what I'm most excited about.
Well, right on, dude. As always, really, really appreciate you taking time out to chat with us. Keep an eye out for AJ on the Bass Pro Tour, especially at the next event here at St. Lawrence coming up this weekend, right? So.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Hopefully we can give you a ring after you've won, and we'll play the audio back, and you'll look like a fortune teller.
I like the way you think.
All right. See you later, man.
All right. See you, dude.
Bye.